Oh man, it's an honor to jump on the Bills Up podcast. I'm Cody. I am not the Bills Up host, but helping out our guy Andy Mack here. Andy, how you doing, man?
We're doing good. I'm letting Cody run the show a little bit here, which is good. I wanted to get a little perspective and some outside. I want someone to come in and ask me some questions as well. So this is, again, Andy Mack from Bills Up Pod. It's been a long season. We want to get back. It's time for some playoff football. There's been a lot going on. There's a lot to talk about, but I did want to bring in another person, our guy who's running up over at Roster Up Media. So we wanted to bring Cody in. We want him to ask me some questions that I've seen on Twitter, some different topics that we want to discuss a little bit in a short period here. We just want to kind of kick this off, keep the listeners up, keep it going. All right. So we have Cody here. He's going to ask me some questions, and then whatever you guys think, you can let us know on Twitter, again, at the Bills Up Pod or at Roster Up Media. Any questions you have, we can answer through there.
Let's do it, man. I appreciate you having me on. But let's talk about this playoff road. Give me your thoughts on just kind of summarize, I guess, the back half of the season. Bills hit a little bit of a road bump in the middle part of the season. And honestly, that kind of felt like normal. Rob and I talked about it on our podcast where they were still clearly an elite team. I think they're pretty clearly the first or second best team in the league and have been for much of the season, including that little blip where they lost a couple in a row. They seem to have mental lapses like that occasionally where they'll be consistently average for a couple weeks, and then much like last year, they snap back into it, and that seemed to be the case this year. What were your thoughts on just the Bills season, especially that back half as they head into the playoffs?
Yeah, so we had that little bump in the road. I mean, we lost to the Jets there, and Josh got a little dinged up, and then we lost to the Vikings on that kind of heartbreaker. And stuff wasn't looking great, but then we rattled off, I think 6 or 7 or 5 or 6 in a row there. And you look at previous championship teams like that Chiefs team that won, they had a little bump in the road in the middle. Sometimes it's good to have a little adversity in the middle of your season. So just to kind of come back from that, and having a little adversity is not what the Bills season was. The Bills season was a lot of adversity between just injuries we've had. Like, we don't even realize how lucky we were last year to have everyone healthy last year. The injuries that we've had this year, like, we haven't had our starting defense the entire year. So from Micah Hyde in the beginning of the year, it's Tre'Davious White not coming back till the middle of the year, to losing Von Miller to a torn ACL, to losing Greg Rousseau for multiple games. Tremaine Edmonds, Milano sat out games here and there. Like, the health has been just, last year was a blessing, and it hates to look at if possibly last year was our year to really win it. We're going into this year, we're a little bit more dinged up. We don't know if the defense is as good, especially now that Von Miller's out. But that was the first thing of adversity, was our health. Obviously, everything else with DeMar Hamlin in the last couple of weeks, with the owner Pagula, with the insane snowstorm where we had to play a home game in Detroit. Adversity is something the Bills are used to with this playoffs and this whole season. So going into the playoffs with a little chip on our shoulder, like, we've been through it this regular season, now we're ready for the playoffs, is like, it's a good little hype up thing. It's a good thing to, like, have your back on. So having DeMar back healthy in Buffalo is, I think, going to be huge for this team. If he even comes out for, like, if he's at the stadium for the Miami game this week, or even it's for next round, like, that's going to be just an insane scene and moment. And seeing even last week at the kickoff return, like, there's just something special about this team right now that we just love to see as Bills fans. But when it comes to really just, like, the football aspect of it, as fans, you see that they're not a perfect team right now. And, like, you watch other teams, and you don't want to say that Cincinnati game, like, we would have lost that Cincinnati game. You never know. Like, teams go down 7-3, even if they went up like 14-3 in that game. But, like, there's teams out there. The Chiefs look good. Cincy looks good. And teams in the NFC, obviously, Niners, Eagles, they look good as well. And it's going to be a battle. Like, I don't see us at all as the clear favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. So that's how I'm kind of looking at going to the playoffs. We obviously get a good week one playoff week one matchup against Miami without Tua. I saw it's the biggest spread in wildcard history. It's like 13.5 right now, 14 going against Skylar Thompson. But if you hate to look ahead, but hopefully we do win this game. You look ahead and you see the Cincy rematch. It's going to be in the next round. So that's where I'm looking at right now. It's going to be a tough battle. And then seeing if we do end up beating Cincinnati in that second round, you look ahead and we're playing Kansas City in pretty much another Super Bowl. That game just got announced that it's being played in Atlanta. It's like if you look at it, like the Bills are literally playing in 2 Super Bowls if they win that game. Then they're going to go and play in the Super Bowl again in Arizona. So that's just kind of how my outlook is right now. There was a lot of adversity this season going into the playoffs. We got mostly everyone back. We don't have Von Miller. It's great to see that Micah Hyde is practicing. He was ruled out for the season in week 2 or week 3. It was actually week 3, because I went down to the Miami game. It was that week. So McDermott ruled him out for this week and most likely next week. But if we did make the AFC Championship, it'd be great to see him 23 back on the field with Jordan Poyer. Those two have just been unreal the last couple of years. So seeing them together is great. So, yeah, going to the playoffs, we're going to see. I want to see how this team handles this first home game in January. Josh Allen against the Dolphins he's got crazy numbers. He's never lost at home against the Dolphins, which is a good stat to have. But I don't want them to really hang around in this game. I kind of hope they put the foot on the gas here and kind of hopefully maybe it's tough to say rest the starters in the playoff game, but I hope they win this game handily and we can move on to next week healthy against most likely the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, I think that's what championship teams do, and that's what they've got to do. You can't let for the Dolphins to hang around, they have to hold them under 20 points. The Dolphins are going to, and there's a couple of things going the Bills' way. The Dolphins have one of the highest blitz rates in the league, and Josh Allen is one of the best against blitzes this year when under pressure. So there's a lot of things, not just being at home trending in their direction where they should really blow out the Dolphins. But at the end of the day, if the Dolphins defense has some incredible game plan, steps up to make this game competitive, I think they've got to hold them under 20 points. Skylar Thompson isn't hanging 30, 35 points on this Bills defense, even without Von Miller. I think, those concerns are for later on in the playoffs. But let's address those concerns a little bit, because that was something you mentioned before the show was some issues with the secondary, your concerns there. Obviously, Von Miller's out, so you've talked about that. And just the ability to get pressure on the quarterback. The Bills got to look at percentages with that one less game, but in terms of pressure percentage and sack percentage, they're in the bottom 12 of the league, sitting right there, pretty much just under league average. They're not anywhere near the bottom of the league in pressure percentage. They're sitting there right about 17th, 18th sack percentage, right square in the middle. So just talk to me about how the secondary is going to hold up with potentially a little less pressure coming from that line throughout the season. How concerned are you? Do you see that as the Achilles heel? Because, in terms of yards per play, in terms of adjusted net yards per attempt, the Bills have been pretty solid overall. But in terms of getting actual pressure and creating sacks, it's pretty much been middle of the road. And we know how that can impact the secondary.
Yeah, so this is just the argument that we had going, after the year, we're like, all right, we didn't get any pressure. And we go out and we pay Von Miller for 4 years, $100 million. And then started the season off, I'm like, wow, this is it. He's actually our missing factor. He was going off in the beginning of the year. And him being there made Greg Rousseau also just an excellent outside edge defender. And then he goes down. And Tre'Davious comes back, but we know Tre'Davious White's not the same all-pro cornerback that we used to have. So seeing that the secondary has struggled against some really good receivers, like you saw in the first couple drives against Cincinnati, they were going right at us. And right now with the secondary, with Tre'Davious White, he's going to do what he can. I think he's getting better each week. He had an interception last week against New England, but the opposite side of him has been a combination of Dane Jackson and Kyer Elam. Kyer Elam being our first-round pick, looking like he was going to be our cornerstone corner, aside from Tre'Davious White, has not been able to see the field. And I don't know. It's been a back and forth. I've been asking for a little more of him because Dane Jackson has not been playing great at all. So I've been asking for more Kyer Elam. We had DeMar Hamlin, who was our backup free safety. So now we're down to our third-string safety across from Jordan Poyer. So secondary is young, it's inexperienced, but at least having Jordan Poyer back there is great. Jordan Poyer in games that we've played this year, we are undefeated. We haven't lost a game with Jordan Poyer playing. So having him there, having Milano, having Edmonds, the linebackers are steady. But we're going to need the D-line to do something. We're going to need Greg Rousseau to really take a step in this playoffs and create some pressure because we cannot ask our secondary to hold some of these receivers that we're going to face in especially week one. We're going to be going against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and they kind of killed us in that last game in Buffalo as well. So we can't be asking these guys to hold them for too long. So we definitely had to get home with our D-line. So it's just like we're having this conversation again every year. I know once we get to Kansas City, it's going to be the same thing. If we get to Cincinnati, it's going to be like, we got to get the Burrow quick because they got 3 legit receivers. So it's going to come down to our D-line getting home. And do I feel confident in it? I'm not super confident. I'm not like just watching the defense. I was watching it last couple of games with my family. I'm just like, this defense is just not like, it's not great. It's just not a great defense. We need the offense to be putting up points, and we need the defense to maybe just hold teams to less than 20, less than 21. It's really what we can ask, but it shouldn't be a lot to ask for, right? So, but that's kind of what my views are on this defense right now.
Yeah, it's kind of odd because you look at I mean, you know me, man. I like to look at a few different stats and everything, and you look at their pressure created, and it's middle of the road, and it creates potential issues in the secondary. But then you look at their overall grades across the board, and they got one of the top graded lines and linebackers as well, according to Pro Football Focus. And total DVOA, they're number 1. And defensive DVOA, they're still top 5. But where they get hurt is against these teams that can burn them deep when they don't create pressure. And to your point, that's what you're saying is that's where they kind of feel average at times. And that's where the frustration comes in because you know exactly what the weakness is. And the only teams that are going to give you trouble and be able to hang with you offensively are the teams that can attack your defensive weakness. So that's certainly going to be an issue moving forward. Surely they can do enough to destroy Skylar Thompson. I played a little bit of devil's advocate earlier, just talking about how the Dolphins what they would have to do to hang tight. But ultimately, you got the number 1 graded quarterback in the league. You have really, I mean, an MVP candidate. I think Mahomes will end up getting that this year, but Josh Allen has been great even with UCL injury. I think he's at this point been so great people don't even really realize it. Like I was kind of going back through some of his numbers and everything while you were talking, and it was just kind of like, wow, you almost forget how good he is at this point. So obviously he's probably going to do his thing this weekend against the Dolphins. Tell me, who are you watching for this weekend offensively? We've talked quite a bit about the defense. What do you want to see from the offense? Is there anyone in particular you want to see step up?
It's Gabe Davis. It has to be.
Gabe Davis, okay.
Getting a lot of backlash from fans, from coaches, like his drop percentages. It's just like if you look at his stats this year, versus last year, he is having a better year this year, but everyone's kind of expecting him to take a bigger leap because week 1, he had a 2-touchdown game, looked great. Week 4, against Pittsburgh, he had that 95-yard touchdown. He started off the season really well, but now he's had some big-time drops. He had the what everyone thought was a catchable pass against the Jets where Josh threw that bomb up to him. Last week he had a catch that could have been caught in the end zone, could have put an extra. Like it just feels like whenever we have a big drop, it's Gabe Davis. And I don't know if it's him just kind of some people like to say lazy, like run some lazy routes. He's got to have a big game, I think. So looking at him, I like the emergence of James Cook more over Devin Singletary. Singletary had a big fumble against New England last week. I don't know if that's going to be in his head. But it's just pretty much Gabe Davis, guys, see a big increase in him and giving Joshua more pressure on the O-line are the two biggest things on the offense. But everyone likes to make fun. Everyone likes to kind of, and I do it too, kind of just talk down about Ken Dorsey in the offense. Right now, statistically, our numbers have been better than last year with Dable. But still, just people don't love like the type of play calling, which I sometimes do as well. But it's hard not to put up points when you have Josh Allen, your quarterback, you have Stephon Diggs, and you have this kind of offense. But some guys that I really think have been trending upward as well that I want to see a little bit more of are like just, I don't know, we don't need as much Isaiah McKenzie. So throwing Cole Beasley, throwing the John Brown, throwing Khalil Shakir, throwing these other receivers kind of in the mix more than Isaiah McKenzie would be fine. I like to see that more. And then again, just just hammering home Diggs. Like, they went about 3 or 4 games this year. Yeah, they were bad weather games, but they went about 3 or 4 games this year not targeting, and Diggs didn't do as much. It was toward the end of the year. Like, he's got to get double-digit targets every single game in this playoff series. Like, he's got to be the guy no matter what. Even if they're double-teaming him, you got to find him. I love it when they throw him in the middle of the field on a linebacker. Like, he just looks unguardable. So just making sure that he's getting a look every single drive is a big thing for this offense as well.
You mentioned James Cook there, and I mean, he just looks explosive. I think towards the back half of the season, he kind of got comfortable offensively, started coming along a little more. I think he is potentially just a little bit of a hidden weapon for them going into the playoffs. I do think overall he's better. He's a great runner, good pass catcher. I know they lean on the experience of Singletary, and he's been solid for them, but the upside of Cook is kind of undeniable, and he actually is a 17th graded running back according to Pro Football Focus towards the end of the season, where he really picked it up, and Singletary's sitting right there at 23rd, so not far behind him, but I thought that was interesting. Just wanted to note that, considering you spoke of James Cook. I do agree. I'd like to see a lot more of him. I think potentially we are as well going to see more of him throughout the course of this playoffs, especially if they believe that they can trust him in pass protection situations and those third and short situations, et cetera. It seems like Singletary's kind of losing that trust a little bit. Gabe Davis, though, it's weird, man. He just is. I can't put my finger on it. I mean, clearly, I've had time to think about it. I still don't necessarily have the words to express what it's like watching him. It's frustrating and it's impressive at the same time.
We definitely, just Bills fans, expected more from him to be the legit 100% locked in number 2 receiver for this team. And now he's definitely put the question mark at his position going into next year if we need to find another another receiver number 2. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just like he's got big drops sometimes. He won't get his foot down, but it's tough to look at. I mean, but I don't know. Last time people saw him in the playoffs, he had 4 touchdowns, so he can easily change people's minds with this upcoming playoff. Yeah,
it's very weird because here's his PFF grades by season starting in 2020, which I believe that was his rookie year: 66, 81, 64. So last year, he took this massive second-year leap that we see out of a lot of young receivers, and then he regressed this year quite a bit. And the reason I look at their grades is because they're not just looking at stats, they're looking at it play-by-play and doing a lot more in-depth analysis than I could ever do. So I think that's interesting to see him take a massive leap, and you feel those frustrations from Bills fans. I felt it sometimes watching him this season. It's just he's an anomaly, and then other times he's incredible with some of the big play grabs he can make down the field. So what version of Gabe Davis we get throughout this playoffs, I think certainly matters because it can really open things up for Stephon Diggs. We know Diggs opens the field up for everyone else. He's got to capitalize and make teams pay for that. And if he can't, it's going to be a serious problem. Like secondary issues and all that are by far the least of your issues if you can't have Gabe Davis capitalizing on the opportunities that we know Allen and Diggs and that offensive line are going to be able to create for him down the field as these playoffs progress. And obviously we're assuming they beat the Dolphins here. I'm assuming that I think pretty much everyone's picked them. It's just, I mean, the Ravens have a better chance of beating the Bengals than the Dolphins do of the Bills in this scenario. So obviously we're hoping to talk again next week. Why don't you give me a bit of a score prediction for the game this week? And I'm not sure if you have one at all, but if you do, throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at this week, we're going to hope we're going to move on from here. Something that the Dolphins do still have, they actually do have a really good D-line. And like you look at their pass rush, they have guys up there. So seeing if they can protect Josh this week, at least the O-line, that's going to be something to be confident. If he's running for his life still all game, that's not going to be something that's going to be good going into the next couple of weeks. All right, we don't want him taking any hits this week that he doesn't have to do. So that's definitely something I'm looking at this week is the O-line. Score prediction, I don't know. What is Skowrigan and Thompson go put up in Buffalo? The crowd's going to be insane. It's the first play. Like last year, I was at the first home playoff game against the Patriots where we absolutely whomped them. I just think it's going to be the same kind of effect. I think we score early. We get a couple of stops on third down from them. We just can't turn the ball over. That's just a big thing. No stupid mistakes. I think Josh knows that, but got to be efficient in the red zone. I'm going to predict that they're only going to put up, I think they maybe score a late touchdown at the end. I would say, let's go Let's go 35-14.
35-14.
I think the weather doesn't look too bad. I think it's just going to be chilly, maybe a couple snowfall, but I don't think any bad weather that we're going to see. But I think we put up some points. We averaged 31 points against the Dolphins anyway at home with Josh. So I think playoffs, we throw in some magic. We throw in the vibes are going to be through the roof. Again, if Damar Hamlin's in the stadium, that would just be insane, but it's going to be great. The different now, Naheem Hines has also made our special teams an absolute threat after last week. People got to be careful about that. So him having that mojo on kickoff and punt returning could be huge for this team too. So 35-14, I think maybe Dolphins get a late score at the end. It doesn't really matter. I think it's a very dominating win. We're going to win. Yeah, it's a 1:00 game on Sunday. So rooted for them. Obviously going to parlay it into the nice Giants game. I got to root for my guy Dable over there. So hopefully they take down the Vikings as well. We could talk about that. But that's my prediction. I'm pretty confident in it, but we're going to have a lot more to talk about, I think, going into a next possible Bills-Bengals playoff matchup in Buffalo. So,
yeah, that would just be incredibly exciting. That's the football I'm hoping to get, where really the AFC is extremely difficult. The AFC has the three best teams in the league, and they've got to go through each other one way or another to get to the Super Bowl. I would certainly love to see this split up a little bit between the two conferences, but that's not the case. So the AFC, starting next weekend, as long as all things hold this weekend, is going to be incredible to watch down the stretch. NFC, I'm sure we'll have some good games as well. But, the Bills, just what a tough road. If you're able to get through this, it's obviously the Super Bowl is only one game.
Next weekend, it's possibly Burrow, Allen, and Mahomes versus Herbert or Mahomes versus Lawrence. It's just that's ridiculous. It's going to be some exciting football next weekend, I can tell you that. But let's get through this week. Let's get through healthy, and we'll see where we are for next week.
Absolutely, man. Well, best of luck to your Bills. I appreciate you letting me jump on here a little bit with you, man. And I appreciate you kind of letting me just kind of be part of the show. Any other thoughts you want to throw out to Bills Nation before we wrap up?
It's good to have you. Thank you, Cody, for coming on, asking me some questions. I do like having another guy on here kind of giving me some insight, so it's not me just rambling. But any questions that anyone has, please reach out to us. Bills Up Pod on Twitter, Roster Up Media on Twitter. We got other teams going. Right now, we got the Eagles in the playoffs. We got the Giants in the playoffs. We don't have the Jets or the Panthers. We could tell you that, even though they had a late push. But we can answer any questions you have. Cody's been great for us here. We're going to keep this going next week. Hopefully, we're talking a little bit about Bills Bengals. All right. So thank you guys. Thank you, Cody. And we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.